How does the one naturally become the Trinity? All right, that is today's question, and glad you could make it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Thomas. I do educational videos on many different topics. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to just get right into it. We're talking about the Tree of Life, and the Tree of Life has 12 major components that we will be going over, and then at the end we're going to be going over one of the Tree of Life's 144 minor components. Okay, so let's look at the 12 components first. Here we have the Tree of Life itself. This is a diagram. It goes back at least to ancient Egypt, if not before. And as you can see, it's really more or less a map of our consciousness. And we have here 10 different circles or spheres that are numbered 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then there is a thing here called the abyss. And then there is a 0 above the tree. So there are 12 different components to this map of consciousness. And so each one of these different 12 components more or less corresponds to a faculty of our consciousness, or an ability of our consciousness, or really just an aspect of our consciousness. And the way that it works is that basically the universe is created here, it comes down here, we are more or less born here, and we are evolving in this direction. So we start with really the 10th sphere is the only one that is open, and then we gradually open as many of the rest of them as we do over the course of our lives. So the 10th sphere is the lowest one, and this has to do with what's called survival or instinct. So this is really our life force. This is our ability to keep ourselves alive, like involuntarily, like we just naturally breathe, and our heart naturally beats, and our blood naturally pumps into our organs, and so on. And so this also corresponds to the law of the jungle. This corresponds to fight or flight response. And so this is really our wild animal consciousness. Okay, if that's our wild animal, the 9th sphere is more like our domesticated animal. So this begins to open up right after birth, and for the first 5 or 7 years of our life, we're really dependent upon our 9th sphere, where as a domesticated consciousness. So this is what we get in the home. And, we are highly receptive at this stage in our life because everything is new and different to us. And we are basically highly influenced, highly receptive to our caregivers that are in the home. They are providing examples for us. We stare at them and we watch what they do, and they're doing all these other things, and we eventually learn to try to imitate what they do. We see them walking, we see them talking, and eventually we begin to try to imitate those behaviors. And we find that it's very difficult, so we have to practice over and over again. We keep falling when we're trying to walk. We only, can access a couple words at a time. We, learn new words and learn how to say them. So so we have a heightened receptivity, and then we are imitating those who are nurturing us and caring for us in our environment. Those we are devoted to and are devoted to us. And then we practice that over and over again until we get it up to the level we want, and then we eventually memorize it, and it kind of goes back down into the 10th sphere as being like an unconscious. Okay, then if the 9th sphere is about the domestic sphere, the 8th sphere is about the public. So the public consciousness or sphere. So this is really our belief systems and our rational faculties. This is what we get when we go out into the real world. When we go to school, when we go to church, when we go to the mall, when we go to the rec center, and we are exposed to all kinds of other influences. In particular, we're exposed to the establishment and we're exposed to the institutions. And this is really like the powers that be. And they hold all the resources and they hold all the, the status in our society. So, when we start going to school, they start telling us, oh, when you grow up, you could eventually become a doctor, or you could become the president, or you could become, some other, a judge. So they are, and all you have to do to become those things is to really learn the conventional wisdom, the consensus worldview. You need to learn how, to believe in what we're telling you, and then learn how to behave in the way that we're telling you to. So, you gradually get indoctrinated into this as you get older. You go to school, and you get this kind of, this feedback where you take, you get the highest grade on the test if if you're able to repeat their belief systems. You get into the best schools, and then eventually you get the best jobs, and then your ultimate goal is actually to become one of these people that is one of the experts, that is one of the people that they look to be one of the shapers of the belief systems. Now, this can be very problematic because the A-sphere is a trickster. So what it's telling you to believe is not always the truth. It can be the truth, but it doesn't always have to be the truth. It's really what they deem is convenient for them. And so many times what they tell you is true goes directly against your own experience and what you've come to accept as your experience before that. And so in many cases, in order to get into this A-sphere, again, where all the resources are located, you have to kind of be able to put away your own experience and discard it and diminish it in favor of what everybody else is saying, or at least what you perceive everybody else is saying, what they tell you that everybody else believes. Everybody knows that. Well, so they use those kind of things in order to kind of make fun of people who don't believe in this. So this is kind of like a peer pressure kind of thing. And so what often happens is that, we see this as the goal for our life, to get in here for success, to be, to fulfill our goals, to become that doctor or that judge. And it causes us to invert our A-sphere because we end up having to reject our own experience in favor of what they tell us is the truth. It's the classic emperor wears no clothes type of situation. So in order to not have to invert or twist our A-sphere, we have to be able to kind of just pay lip service to it and say, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I agree. And then, but in reality, in your head, you're saying, no, I don't really agree, but I'll just give you the minimum that you're requiring so that I can move on to the next sphere, because this is only the third sphere that we've opened up. We have 9 more to open up, but many people get stuck here for life, or even stuck here for life because they have twisted the A-sphere to reject their own experience and to accept this experience. And so the people that get stuck here never get to experience 3/4 of life in its 3/4 of their potential, are really even more than 3/4, because each one of the higher ones is actually more important than this one. Okay, so now if a person can kind of maintain their sphere upright and stick with their own belief systems in spite of what the sphere is telling us, they find that they end up starting to move over here to the 7th sphere, where the sphere is about the real world. The 7th sphere is about the imaginary world. So this is the world that you imagine. You saw all the problems here with the sphere, and you imagine something better. And so imagination is one of the major faculties here at the 7th sphere, along with other things that are kind of aiding in the process, including inspiration. You may have seen other people who have also kind of tried to do the same as you did before you, that kind of gave you the impetus to make to make the departure from the sphere. You also can use your intuition, which is really your curiosity, triggered by your curiosity. So you can ask yourself, why or how could I make this better? How could this function better? And you go inside into your heart and you will get an answer. And that answer, you may mistranslate the answer, so you have to verify the answer, but the answer will be correct. And it will be, a way that, kind of aids your imagination in visualizing something better than this. And then you also have your creative faculties and your pleasure principles. So these things also go into play in creating your creative alternative to the sphere. And this is ultimately manifested at the top of the 7th sphere by what is really called the higher calling, or the mission in life. And so unlike the sphere, where they tell you you're going to be part of this cookie cutter machine, you'll be a doctor, or you'll be a judge, or you'll be a teacher, or you'll be a janitor, or you'll be, whatever category, broad category of something. Here at the 7th sphere, you're attempting to become yourself. You're attempting to become the very best version of yourself, and how you can best contribute to the world at large. You evaluate all your strengths and weaknesses, your affinities and your dislikes, and your environment and your parents and your place in the world, and you come up and you use all the other faculties of the 7th sphere, and you come up with a higher calling for yourself. And this propels you up the tree. So first you go to the 6th sphere, and the 6th sphere is really our free will faculty. This is really our ability to, free will is really our ability to pay attention and to make decisions. So free will is not free. You have to pay and you have to make. But we find ourselves in general, this is really our center. This is, if this were a map, it would say you are here. So this is where we are located. And unfortunately, we're generally paying attention to the lower aspects, especially the 8th and 9th sphere. And so, but we have the ability to make decisions as well as part of our free will. So we can decide to avert our attention from this lower area and to put our attention on our higher development, on these higher faculties. But this requires courage, because these higher faculties are not well developed. Most of them are completely undeveloped, whereas these are already familiar to us. So we have to be able to kind of stare into the nothingness, into the unknown, and that requires courage. If we can summon enough of that courage, then we can direct our attention at the next sphere in line, which is the 5th sphere. And this 5th sphere is really our sense of justice, or sense of fairness, or right and wrong. And this is also what you would call karma. And so you can envision karma as really like a mirror that reflects your actions. So karma will be, cause and effect. As you sow, so shall you reap. What comes around goes around. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And karma judges us or grades us depending upon waste, violence, and violation. So when we waste our lives, or we waste some resources, then we get waste in return. It comes back to us. And so, but if we're paying attention, then we can see that no, we're not a victim. No, it's not, this bad result didn't happen as a result of bad luck. It happened because we made it happen, because we put out a wasteful or violent action, and so that's what we got back. So once we kind of come to that realization that this is a fair process and I'm not being a victim here, I'm getting back what I put in, then karma no longer becomes our enemy, and it can become our teacher. So we can learn how to clean up our behavior by paying attention to what is, karma creating out of our behavior. And so no longer is karma our punisher, it can become our protector. So we can get to the point where we can clean up all of the violence, waste, and violation from our behavior, and therefore we can guarantee that there will be no karma coming back to us because we didn't put any in. So that means that we are immune to karma at that point, for that action at least. Okay, now where the fourth sphere, where the fifth sphere is about the enforcement of the law, the fourth sphere is about the articulation of that law. And that comes in the form of holy books or cosmologies, and pretty much every tradition has one, and there's many modern ones also. And they talk about all of the basics, who is God? Where did we come from? What's our relationship with God? What's our relationship with nature? What are the laws of nature? And so on. And these are, there are many different cosmologies, and some are better than others. Some have stood the test of time. The best approach is to the synthesis or syncretic approach, where we take in as many of these cosmologies as we can, and then again we use our intuition to dig deep to figure out what makes sense to us. Okay, then the abyss is about our psychic powers. This boils down to psychic heat and psychic receptivity. They're both triggered by an omen. An omen is something that's way out of the realm of probability, something that it happens that's really weird, some coincidence, synchronicity, or recurring theme, or recurring name or number, and that clicks in your mind as being really weird. And that is a trigger for your psychic receptivity to say, hey, that is an omen. That's the language that the universe uses to look at, to pay closer attention. And then the omen also itself will have an action prescribed within it. And that action is the psychic heat to be able to take that action. But that also requires courage, because you have to be able to act in the face of fear, because this is, again, the unknown. Okay, then we have 3, 2, and 1 that are above the tree, or at the top of the tree. And these represent the divine aspects within us. Omnipotence, all-powerful. Omniscience, all-knowing. And omnipresence, all-present, all at once. This we tap into through sound synchronization, and this is really our ability to really fulfill everything of our higher calling, every aspect of our higher calling. And we trigger this through sound synchronization, such as mantra, And then the second sphere is really omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom. And we tap into this through very, very deep meditation where we can calm the mind, and to the point where the mind is transparent and we can see through the mind to the image at the one, which is the image of wisdom. So we're able to see this center within us, this deepest center within us. And that will give us the solution to our problems, which is wisdom. Wisdom is the solution to our problems. And then if we're able to even go further, not just to be able to see the center, but actually to be at the center, to merge with our higher self, then that is the first sphere, omnipresence. And that is really to be one with that singularity at our center. And what happens then is when we're one with the singularity, we recognize that what's at our deepest center is the same as what is at the deepest center of everything else. So we're unified with everything else. So the one is where everything is. And then the zero is where nothing is. So the zero has to do with nothingness and a total mystery, because the zero is not part of the universe. There is no zero in the universe. And but there is a zero in the creator. So this is part of the creator, but is not part of the universe. And so we have indirect access to this, but not direct access. So those are the 12 different major categories of the tree. Now, if we want to boil it down to 144 minor aspects, what we do is we take the whole tree and we superimpose the whole tree on each one of the 12 major aspects. And that breaks it down into, each one of them breaks down into 12 minor aspects. When you add them all together, you basically get, 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12 and so on until you get to 144 different minor aspects. And so each video at the end, we're going to look at one of those 144 minor aspects each time. And so today we are looking at number 129. How does the one naturally become the Trinity? And so, as you might have guessed, this is located in the first sphere. How does the one naturally become the Trinity? And as you also might have guessed, this is the third minor aspect, or third fractal of the first sphere. So the first sphere is omniscience, all present all at once, and 2 is omnipotence, all powerful. So those are the 2 aspects that we're putting into this fractal. And so number 29 is called 3 speed ranges, 3 scalar dimensions. Stage 129 is about how the universe is composed of 3 scalar dimensions of motion, each underlain by 3 vectorial dimensions. The vectorial dimension is fundamentally divided into the normal or low, intermediate, and ultra-high speed ranges. Each has unique characteristics. The trinity of 3 speed ranges can be shown with a simple box. If we have a box, we automatically have the box, and we have the inside of the box and the outside of the box too. The box itself represents motion. Time is on the outside of the box, and space is on the inside. The space gets filled by time, and the time gets emptied or excavated by space. The Trinity can also be represented by mind, body, and spirit. Spirit is the box, or the center. Mind is the outside of the box, and body is the inside of the box. And again, between them is the spirit. There is a law in physics called the Fourier principle, which says that all shapes are just simple sine waves added up in different combinations. Geometry, or shape, underlies everything else. In geometry, the vector equilibrium, or cube octahedron, is the system, is the box. The inside of the box is the icosahedron, and the outside of the box is ultimately the dodecahedron. But that is built up to first with a tetrahedron, then an octahedron, or then a cube, and then a dodecahedron. The icosahedron and the dodecahedron both demonstrate the phi ratio, phi, the Greek letter, which can also be pronounced phi. The three speed ranges can be represented by 1, by phi, and by phi to the second power. Phi on the inside and phi to the second power on the outside. Phi is a transcendental function that can be approximated by the number 1.6180339 and on out to infinity. All language is referring to shapes or geometry or geographic relationships, and language itself is in shapes, as the letters themselves are shapes derived from two basic shapes: the golden mean spiral, which comes from the icosahedron and dodecahedron, and then the donut or torus, which comes from the vector equilibrium. So the vector equilibrium is the donut, and the icosa and dodecahedrons are both the golden mean spiral. There are also three scalar dimensions of motion, but we can only perceive one of them at a time. A scalar dimension cannot be represented geometrically because scalar things have no direction, only magnitude. Scalar motion does not distinguish between one direction and another, but within each scalar dimension, there are three vectorial dimensions. The three scalar dimensions are the dimensions of space-time. They can be reconciled with the three speed ranges in this manner. The first and third dimensions represent the low speed and the intermediate speed ranges, while the second scalar dimension represents the ultra-high speed range. The second dimension is different than the others in that it is divided into 1/2 in the space-time region and 1/2 in the time-space region, while the low and intermediate aspects of motion are in both of those sectors, time-space region and space-time region, but separately. So the low and intermediate speeds are in the time-space region, and they are also in the inverse in the space-time region. And then they are separated by the ultra high speed region between them. So the integers, so really the low speed range is represented as 1 minus x. The intermediate speed range is 2 minus x. And the ultra high speed range is 3 minus x, where the 1, 2, and 3 both represent the speed of light. So, 3 minus x means 3 times the speed of light minus x. The 3 speed ranges can thereby also be represented in atomic physics. The low speed range we are accustomed to and can be represented by an expanding sphere, more and more expanding as the speed increases. At the boundary between the low speed and the intermediate speed, the rules invert. So beyond this, in the intermediate region, the speed can be represented by a contracting or collapsing sphere that becomes more and more dense as the speed increases. The intermediate range is entered once we cross the speed of light. So that's where 1 minus x becomes 2 minus x. Then the things invert and expansion becomes contraction. The ultra high speed range is only in one vectorial dimension, represented by a line or a jet. They are also represented in the atom between electricity, magnetism, and electromagnetism. These speed ranges have broad applications. For example, the structure of the brain. The cerebrum is the low speed range, the corpus callosum being the intermediate range, and the thalamus being the ultra high speed range. The fact that the Trinity is reflected ubiquitously in our world and that it can be easily resolved into the one means that deep down we are all one. All right, that is the third fractal of the first sphere. 3 speed ranges, 3 scalar dimensions. If you didn't get all that, we will just keep it in your mind. We will cover it more and more as the course wears on. It's very, very high up on the tree, so it's probably going to be difficult to understand, but hopefully we'll make it clearer as time goes on. Anyway, thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. Please click the like button. You can share the video with others, subscribe to the channel, make comments that are constructive in the comment section, and you can also get my free guide to the 144 Fractal Faculties in the description by clicking the link, and you can also donate directly to me through Cash App, Venmo, also listed in the description. Have a great day, and tomorrow there'll be just another video just like this one, but a different one of the 144 Fractal Faculties. Have a great day.